Hi, welcome to Christine's Corner. Today's guest is from the Bristol Watch and Clock Museum, is Patti, the director.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely wonderful to come back again.
Always enjoy it, definitely.
Yeah. So where about in Bristol is it located?
So the Clock and Watch Museum is on Maple Street in Bristol. We're right in the center of town, right on Federal Hill.
Oh, I know a lot of people go by and say, I got to make a point to go there, but I've been there twice.
Yay!
Yeah.
I love hearing that. It's definitely one of those places that people, they drive by all the time, they see it, they say, oh, we got to stop there. So I definitely encourage everyone to finally make that stop and come and see us.
So there's a lot of, I said watch and clock, so there's a lot of watches.
Absolutely. We have a collection of about 6,000 timepieces.
6,000, wow.
Not all of them are on display at every given time. We couldn't fit them all into the building.
Yeah.
But we have about 2,500 clocks and about 3,500 watches in our collection.
I didn't realize there was so much.
Absolutely.
When I went in there, I realized there was a lot.
Yeah. We have about 1,500 of them on display at any point in time, and then it gives us some opportunities to change things out. We do special exhibitions, we do special programs and things like that, that we rotate some of our pieces, and that gives people another reason to come back to see something new that they haven't seen before.
Oh, do I have to go back again?
Absolutely. Become a member. You can come back anytime.
Oh, what's it take to be a member? That is great. You have, looks like a lot of cool stuff on the table here. So you do children's programs too? We
do. I thought I would bring a few different kinds of things and talk about some of our family programming that we do at the museum.
Oh, that's great. That's good to have a family program.
Absolutely. And we do a little bit of everything. So if you just come to the museum on any given day, we have something available all the time, and it's a scavenger hunt. Let you see one of those.
Oh, cute. The little mouse.
It looks like this. And we have a little mouse throughout the museum and alphabet letters. So it encourages kids to find the different letters throughout the museum. All of the different terms are related to either Bristol or the clock industry, the watch industry, the history of the place. And they have fun finding them, and they get a chance to learn a little bit at the same time. So this is something that's available anytime that you come to visit the museum.
So looks like a pretty cool scavenger hunt.
Absolutely. You learn different things about the house, the name of the house that the museum is in, which is called the Lewis House, and it was built in 1801.
Wow, 1801.
And so, yeah, it's an old house.
So Bristol's been making watch clocks for quite a while.
They have been, actually. Bristol was the center, really, of American clock manufacturing in the, from the early 1800s on.
Oh.
It's been here for
a very long time. I thought it was Thomaston or Plymouth.
Thomaston with Seth Thomas. He was a clockmaker that was around. Plymouth, definitely with Eli Terry, which later became Terryville.
Yep.
Anything in Connecticut, really along the Connecticut River and in the valleys where you had the industry use the rivers for transportation, use the rivers for power and things like that. Really, the industries popped up along that area. And there's lots and lots of places throughout the state that are centered on clockmaking or watchmaking.
Wow, so that's good that they're not all died out.
Not as much anymore, I have to say. Really, the industry changed a lot after the Second World War up through the 1950s. And right now, there's really only pockets of clock and watchmakers, and a lot of them are more independent. They're not the big companies and the big factories like they used to have. Timex still has its corporate offices in Connecticut, although they don't actually do most of their manufacturing here. They do that overseas. So the industry has changed a lot. But especially in the watch industry, people are coming back and starting to bring out new things. And there's people all across this country who are either doing American design or American assembly or even some American manufacturing now.
Oh, good.
Which is exciting to see it coming back again.
Yeah, right? So
that's some of the things that we try and teach the kids, that this is not just an industry that happened long ago, that these are some of the things that are still happening today, and how the clock and watch industry is still kind of relevant to some of the stuff that they know about and that they learn about. So learning some of the terms about the clocks and watches, that's part of it. We also do a couple of programs that we can take out to either classrooms, to school groups, to after-school programs, scouting and things like that. Things like time capsule programs.
Time capsule?
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. So our founder of the museum, whose name was Edward Ingram, he was the president of the E. Ingram Company, which was a clock manufacturer in Bristol.
Oh,
and he founded the museum in 1952. We opened our doors in 1954. But prior to that, he had assembled time capsules from the Ingram factory. And so as these clocks and watches were coming off the assembly line, he packed them into crates, and he added some advertising, some of his sales sheets. In a lot of cases, he wrote letters and packed them in the crates, and then he stamped them, "Do not open until." And so we have ones that say that we're not supposed to open them up through 2025.
2025?
Yeah. So every once in a while, we open one, invite people who may have worked in the Ingram factory, because there are still a lot of people in this area who worked in the factories or who had family members work in the factories. We invite them to come back and kind of experience the opening of this time capsule. And so we teach kids how to do that too, and what kinds of things would you put in a time capsule, as well as maybe what kinds of things shouldn't you put into a time capsule,
right.
which sometimes might be just as important, if not more important.
Right.
You know, a picture of your hamster is really great. Your hamster itself, not so much.
Not so much. No. Chewing gum, that's too, no.
No, like, you know, if your favorite food is a ham sandwich, that's probably not the best thing to put in there. But a picture of your family would be great to put in there. You know, maybe a CD, you know, not so much these days, but a picture of your favorite band, a postcard of the favorite place that you go on a vacation, or different things
Favorite
like that.
toy or stuff.
Favorite toy, and we do these programs for both families as well as for kids. We piloted the program a couple of years ago with a Girl Scout troop, which was a lot of fun. We gave them sheets that they could write about themselves. You know, it was, today is the year 2019, and tell me about yourself in 2019. So that then when
Maybe
you
your
open
goals.
that time capsule 20 years from now or whatever, you could kind of get a snapshot of who you were at that time, or how you saw yourself at that time. So that's a lot of fun for the kids to do too.
So what do we have here?
So these are a new thing that we just introduced this year, and they are kind of mystery boxes. And so these are things that we had brought to actually the Rockwell Park Festival this year to try them out. It was a project that was sponsored by the Bristol Rotary Club, and they have riddles on them. And so you try and guess the riddle, and then once you get the riddle, you open up the box, see if you're right, and then you get a chance to touch the timepiece and things like that. So let's see how good you are. How's that?
I was afraid of that.
I brought some of the easier ones. How's that?
Oh no, that makes it worse.
Let's try this one. We'll try the easier one. How's that?
All right.
So it says, we come in pairs, but sometimes there are three. One of us is short, and one of us is long. We do not have any fingers. We help you tell the time. What are we?
A clock.
What part of a clock?
The hand.
There you go. So when you open it up, let's see if you're right.
The
They're the hands. And so what we have inside that people can then see, if I can get them out, are different kinds of hands of the clock, which I will get that one after.
Yeah.
So we have about 6 or 8 different mystery boxes that we can take places with us. It gets people to learn, and actually I have to say the adults had as much fun trying this out as the kids did to see if they could figure out what they are. And then you get to actually handle the different parts of the clock and see what they are.
So it's the other one.
Want to try the other one? Are you game for it?
You'll give the answer if I don't, right?
Yes, I will. It says, I am coiled like a snake, but do not slither. I come in many sizes. I make a lovely sound when I vibrate. What am I?
Alarm clock?
Oh, that's a good guess, actually. You're the gong inside the clock.
Oh.
And you actually can then, we invite the kids to make, or the adults.
Oh, nice.
So you have the idea when your clock rings, this is what is actually making that sound.
That sound. Oh. That's interesting.
So it's fun. It's a kind of a fun way to get people to know a little bit about actually what makes a clock tick, and the parts that go into it, and then they actually get to touch the pieces and handle them as well. Whereas when you're in the museum, you get to just see the timepiece and you can't take it apart really and see what's inside it and
Right.
does it work.
That's good.
And then if you
Good
play the
idea.
game, you get a prize, right?
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I brought with us, two other things actually. One of them we have done at the libraries a few times. We have some boxes where we actually come in and do some storytelling.
Oh, good.
And so
We
when
do
we've done it at the
storytelling.
library, we go and we read a story that is related to clocks and watches, and then bring a craft. So the box that I brought with us is Alice in Wonderland. Because the
a good
white
story.
rabbit, he's late, and has some great things to do with the pocket watches. So when we do this program, we go to the library and we bring our wonderful Alice in Wonderland book with us. And then the craft that goes with it is that you get to make your very own pocket watch. And so we bring in the hands and the faces and the cutouts, and then you can decorate your own watch. And some kids put a yarn chain on it
So they
to make it a
can-
pocket watch or to wear it. And then, so you have a craft as well as story time.
What a great idea.
And then we've also, when we did it at the museum, we
Mad
had a Mad
Hatter.
Hatter's tea party.
Ah.
And so all the kids got to make fascinators.
Wow. Oh, that's cute. Looks good on you.
So we had a fun time doing that. We've brought other books in. There's a great book called Bats Around the Clock, and it's a bat dance party, and it's counting down to midnight. So you can get up and dance and move with the kids as the clock goes around, and all the different kinds of dances, like Dick Clark's Rockin' Eve, except for the kids don't know who Dick Clark is.
Oh, right.
But it's a lot of fun, and it gets the kids up and dancing and moving and talking about time and how to tell time as well.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
Great
great
educational.
things. Educational and fun, and there's no reason that things like this
have
can't be
fun.
both,
Right.
There's no
You
reason.
learn better.
Absolutely, and you remember things better that
Right.
way too.
That too.
So, so we have a lot of fun things like this that we have brought places or we've done as programs within the museum. Some great things like that. And then finally, this is a timepiece that we just piloted this program about 2 years ago, and it is an assembly line program that we've brought into the schools. So in the early days of clockmaking, you had a master craftsman and an apprentice, and they made all of the components between the two of them, either individually or together, to make a clock. As the factories grew, you had assembly line production, so each person would have a singular job, and your timepiece, in this case, would go down the assembly line and you do your job. Next person would do their job, and it was much more efficient.
Yeah.
So, and Bristol had a lot of that, of course, because we had a lot of factories here, not just clock and watch factories, but other kinds of industry. So we have started this program that we've brought into some of the schools where we actually have a race for the kids. We divide the classrooms up. You have a couple of pairs of master clockmaker and apprentices, and then you have some assembly line. And this is what the kids are making. So you have to put your box together.
Oh, okay.
You have one person who cuts apart the tablet. You have one person who paints the tablet or colors it.
Yep.
You have someone who cuts out the dial. Then you have somebody who cuts out the pediment and paints the pediment. And of course, we can adapt this to depending on how big the classes are, because some smaller classes, they may just color everything, you know, one person.
Right.
Then you have somebody who actually assembles the clock, gluing it on. And then you have finally somebody else who assembles the movement. And then you, if all goes well, the assembly line works, and they go faster than the clock, than the master craftsmen do. And it teaches them in a hands-on way, and then you get a clock for your class.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. You have to have the take-home.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds you of what you did that day at the Clock Museum.
Absolutely.
And how much fun you had.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that about Bristol having clocks. How many, factories?
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a number of different factories over time, and so there was probably about 280 different concerns working in clockmaking throughout Bristol's history. And that could be everything from the big factories to the individual artisan to somebody who might have been doing dial painting or case making and things like that.
As you said, one person does one thing and another does another thing.
Absolutely, but that's still a lot of business.
That's still a lot, 380 as you said?
280.
280,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And then a lot of the businesses that came from the clock industry, of course, are still here. Places that do spring making or wire or plating. A lot of those businesses that are still in the Bristol area in Connecticut, they started off making parts for clocks back in the day. And although the clockmaking industry isn't here in the same way, some of those other industries that came from the clockmaking industry are still here and are still thriving.
So are you open all year?
We are. We are open 7 days a week throughout the majority of the year. Starting in December, so December through March, we're open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, or by appointment.
Oh,
So.
Appointment is...
Just call the museum and make sure somebody's going to be there to let you in.
Oh.
Or we say by happy accident, because if you knock on the door and as long as somebody's there, we're going to let you in.
Do you have parties?
We do. We rent the museum. So if people are having a work event or things like that, or they want to have a meeting, we do rent the museum as well. We have parties ourselves. In the fall, we have something called Wine, Women, and Watches, which is a wine event, oddly enough, with the name, right?
With women?
With women, but men are very, very welcome to come, and we've had men come as part of it. And it's a fundraiser for the museum, so you get a chance to, we do a scavenger hunt for adults throughout the museum.
Oh, nice.
And there's a silent auction and things like that. And it's a fun way to come in and have a great night with friends and get a chance to see the museum. So we do that. In the wintertime, we have something called Mantles for the Season, which runs November and December, where we have decorated the mantles in the museum's galleries and focusing on a timepiece. And then we invite local decorators and businesses to come in and decorate the mantles. So we do that every year as well. And we have a lot of fun with it.
So you said there's a lot of pieces, a lot of clocks and watches. How far back does it go?
Our earliest, because our collection is American clocks and watches, so our earliest timepiece is from about 1690.
Wow.
And then our most recent timepiece was made in 2018.
2018.
Yes, so we have a new
fun.
watch, which is actually a Connecticut watchmaker, and so we have everything in between. So
Do you have Mickey Mouse?
we do. We have alarm clocks, we have pocket watches, we have wrist watches.
Wow.
We have a whole gallery with novelty clocks and watches, I should say. And a lot of them are those character timepieces that people remember so fondly.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse, and we have Cinderella and Dick Tracy, and
cool.
we have
Dick
an E.T. alarm clock. And if it was a popular culture phenomenon, basically it's been put on a timepiece, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Wow, that sounds fascinating. There's more than one level.
Yes, there are 8 different galleries in the museum
8.
on 2 different floors. The lower level is unfortunately our only gallery that is not accessible for everyone because we don't have an elevator since the building is so old. But the other 7 galleries in the museum are accessible to everyone and to the whole public.
Wow. So you have special events throughout each season?
Yeah, we have special events throughout the year, and we publicize them. If you go to our website, which is clockandwatchmuseum.org.
I was going to ask you that.
We definitely list our events. We have certain things that we do every year. We do clock identification days and watch identification days where you can bring in your treasured timepiece, and we have people who will tell you the history of it. We can't give you a value because we're not allowed legally to do that, but we can tell you about the history, when it was made. This is a bit about the manufacturer, this is the model, this is how many of them were made, things like that. And so we do that every year. And then we have special things depending on what our exhibitions are and depending on what's going on in the world.
What kind of special things?
So we've done different talks sometimes. If a particular book has been published on a clockmaker, we'll have the, or relevant to the, clocks, watches, and industries, we'll have the author come in and do author talks.
Oh, nice.
We've done programs that we've had a watchmaker come in, and he's from Brooklyn Watches in New York, and he came in and talked about his style of watchmaking and actually took apart a watch so you could see how many little tiny pieces are actually
Wow.
in there. We've had paint nights where you can either paint wine glasses. We're going to be doing one where you can actually paint your own clock face,
Oh, nice.
which will be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We've had silhouette classes where you can come in because some of our timepieces actually have silhouettes painted on them as part of the tablet. We've done stencil classes, different things like that that are all related to the design or the manufacture of the timepieces.
Well, we have about 4 minutes left. Is there something that maybe I might have forgotten? I know you have something here.
Oh, this is about the time capsules. So this just kind of tells you some of the things, the questions that you answer in what you want to put in your time capsule. You know, what do you put in there? You know, how do you put it together and things like that. So these are some of our time questions.
What, who, and why, and how, and where, and when.
Yeah.
It's easy to get access to the Bristol Watch and Clock.
Absolutely.
And even if you can't make those times, you can just go there
Yeah, absolutely.
or call,
you know,
make an appointment.
Yeah, we are more than welcome. You know, most of the time in the winter, somebody is there, but we can't promise all the time. And in the wintertime, we actually change up our exhibitions. So every year we have a special exhibition. Our 2019 exhibition focused on advertising and how people used ads to sell the timepieces, what it said about society, and you could kind of get a sense of the different changes in society as you're looking at the different advertising. So that will change out for 2020, and we'll have 2 exhibitions actually, one of them kind of telling stories about some of the timepieces, where timepieces are often given as gifts, either as for retirement or maybe as a wedding gift or 50th anniversary with a company or something like that. And we're going to be showing some of those timepieces that are in our collection and kind of telling the stories behind them. You know, who were they given to, for what purpose, and things like that.
Oh, what a great idea.
So we're going to be having that in 2020. And so in the wintertime, we're going to be changing out the galleries, again, to give people something new to see when they come in. And the other exhibition that we're going to be doing is kind of a look back at some of the early clocks in our collection and see how they've been adapted to some of the more modern timepieces. So kind of everything old is new again in a sense, right? So you have, you know, some of our old, maybe tall case clocks or grandfather clocks. And obviously they still make them, but how are they different? You know, what do they symbolize for people then versus now? And what
How
are the
they
movements
changed.
like? How are they changed stylistically? How are they changed and things like that? So we're going to be installing that as well over the winter
Oh,
time.
that's good. Do the schools go to the Clock and Watch Museum too?
Absolutely. We definitely have school groups that come in. We can welcome school kids from every age, and we have different programs, so you can take a tour of the museum, but we can also do special programs for the different ages. We also have had homeschool classes come in and groups come in. And then if you can't get your school class in, we've also developed several programs, such as the assembly line program here or the time capsule program, where we have it's almost a traveling museum. We'll take our museum to you if you can't come to us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
It's a challenge sometimes to get school classes, you know, out of the classroom and, you know.
Yeah, there's so many in the classroom. So,
Absolutely,
I mean,
and with
going
busing
through there,
and you know, having to have days out of school. So
yeah.
if you can't come to us, we'll come to you.
Oh, nice. And that's great that you have parties there too.
Absolutely, it's a fun place to be, especially around noon when all the clocks start ticking and chiming and gonging, which is cool.
Very nice. Well, I'm so glad that, so happy that you came.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and I love everything, even the little mouse on the A there for.
Those are the only kind of mice we like to have in the museum.
Yeah, yeah, right.
We don't want to see anything else.
No, especially if they don't want to. You don't want them gnawing on your clock or watches.
We like these kind, and the hickory dickory dock mice. Those are our
Hickory
favorites.
dock. You must have that poem in there too, the Hickory
We do.
Dickory Dock.
We actually have some timepieces that were made because of that poem, and so the clocks are actually just like the poem says, and there's a little mouse, and it climbs up the clock, and at 1 o'clock it drops back down, and then so you can tell your
Goes
time.
back.
Yeah.
Oh, very cute. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming to Christine's Corner, and tune in next week. See you soon.